Hi, I'm Tim Zacharias with Cougar USA and your host of Building Value. Today, my guest is Karim Kabbara, the Business Development Manager for the Americas for FTC. Karim, thanks for joining me on the show.
No problem. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Awesome. Well, on today's episode, we're going to be looking at the history of FTC, how they got started, how Karim got involved in the industry and is bringing this tank over to the U.S. For distribution, and what sets apart FTC from other options and makes it a great choice for water solutions. On Building Value, we go behind the scenes of building operations to showcase the people and products that make buildings work and the value they bring to the community. So, Karim, can you tell me a little bit about where you grew up?
I was born and raised in Lebanon until I was 17. And then I moved here to go to college. I went to U of H. And I was planning to go back. And I met the woman of my life, I guess. And I stayed.
Nice. Yeah, that's it's awesome, to be able to come over here, go to school, and then find the love of your life and end up making
Got it all
here.
made.
Yeah. So I guess, was there any conversations about, her going back with you?
No, that was not on the plan. But we planned to travel to different countries. And Dubai was one of them. And we went there. We lived there from 2008 till 2012.
Okay. Awesome. So what were you doing over there in Dubai?
I was in real estate. I was working for a real estate developer.
Wow. I imagine that was a pretty fast-paced environment.
It was very fast-paced. It was while we were there, like 24 hours, you hear hammering and they're building. They were on a 24-hour cycle.
That's incredible. Yeah, I mean, you see the growth pictures over there, and it's just incredible from where it started to where it is today.
Oh yeah. I had some pictures where it was like a desert, and now it's like Disneyland. It's unbelievable.
So how did you get involved with FTC? Did you meet them over there?
Well, when I was working with the developer over there, one of the projects that we had to get water tanks for it, and that's how I met the owner of this company, Mr. Nohra, and that's he kept on talking about that he incorporated the company in the U.S. and there was a hold because of the AWWA. And he said, I can't wait till we get that, because that product is going to be unbelievable in the U.S. because the system in the U.S. is a little bit backdated. And I had no plan at all to move back or to do, to work in that tank. But then when I moved back to Houston in 2012, after the economic crisis over there, he said, hey, let's talk. And we talked about it, and it worked out.
Yeah.
We're here now.
Yeah, definitely. So can you tell me a little bit about FTC, kind of the history of the company?
Well, just a little bit about the history of the company. From what I know is the tank actually was created by a company that everybody knows, Bridgestone. Bridgestone created this tank because they did it for charity to send water to other countries. And the owner of the company said, look, I want a tank that would live forever, keep water clean, and do all this kind of thing. And then they came up with this idea for him. So when the owner of our company, he was working in Saudi Arabia and in the desert, they had steel tanks. And steel tanks, they get eaten up by the sand. They get sandblasted, and they could not keep them, for a long time. They would in the heat and all those things. So he kept on looking, to find something different. And then he was in Japan, and he came across this product, and he asked Bridgestone, "Hey, can I buy from you?" And Bridgestone was like, "No, we're not in the business of selling these tanks. We're in the business of just giving it for charity." And as a good salesperson he is, he convinced them at the end that, hey, sell me a container. He bought a container from it, took it with him. And at the beginning, he couldn't sell it. Just like what happened with us in the U.S. People are not used to something, and then it gets sold like this. And then he ordered the second, third, and then he could not keep them, coming. Bridgestone at that time, they were like, you know what, this is too much, and we're basically working for you even more than for us now. And there was a time where they said, look, we'll give you the machines, we'll give you everything, and then you make it, and we'll buy from you. and they basically gave him the machines. We opened the factory in Dubai, and he started making the it was a 10-year contract, making the product and then giving them whatever they need. And after 10 years, that contract was over, and they said, we're out, and we can buy from you later on if we want, or something like that. And until now, they still buy whenever they need. And he basically, his background is engineering, and he basically even improved, a little bit on the tank. And we've been manufacturing this since the 70s.
That's incredible. And how many tanks do you think are out there now?
Around 300,000.
Wow.
Last time I checked.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And of those 300,000, I mean, how many of those are still in service?
Mostly all of them.
Really?
Yeah. I would say 39 or 40 years ago was our first tank. And we always say the limit on the rubber of the tank is 40 years. So it's been out there and it's been still working. So we have a tank that's been out there for 39 years.
That's incredible. Yeah, that's much longer than a steel tank had lasted in that environment.
Oh yeah.
Correct.
Oh yeah. Well, definitely the steel tanks in the heat and does not do good at all. So that's where it started. But his main focus was to build a tank to keep and this is what our slogan is, to keep the water clean. I'm sure you've seen some project and you've seen the tanks. The biggest problem with the tanks is there's bacteria in the water, there's algae in the water, it get rusted, get a little bit red, corrosion, and they start eating up from the tank, and then you start having all this leakage and all these things. And then also what you have to do is to maintain the tank, you have to seal it and do all these things for us. So his main goal was to create a tank that solve all the problems that exist with the regular tanks.
That's interesting. And the process that you use to make that piece, the actual tank itself, is different than a lot of other fiberglass manufacturing, correct?
Definitely. The biggest key on the product that you see right here is that we have 8 hydraulic presses that basically press 2,000 tons on it. So the sheet molding, the SMC, which is the sheet molding compound that comes in, which that's where we put the SMC in. Plus we put 40% glass, and that basically when you compress it under that much tons, 2,000 tons, basically it makes it extremely tough, stronger than steel, and also it's extremely smooth. And that's why when I said like no bacteria, when you get a smooth surface, bacteria don't grow on a smooth surface.
Yeah, and it doesn't have that kind of feel or smell that you would think of from like hand laid up fiberglass.
Well, a lot of people say, fiberglass, it might smell or taste whatever. Whenever you put that heat on it and you put it in that thing, it eliminates the styrene emission, that's what you basically what people think is toxic or it smells. Mm-hmm. Like if you bought a new jet ski or something, you smell that little fiberglass. The moment it comes out, it's no taste, no smell, no nothing for it. Extremely safe.
And I mean, along those lines, basically have every certification possible for clean water, right?
Since we've sold the 300,000 tanks in 56 countries, we almost have every single certificate that you can even ask for. AWWA, is took us 18 years to get approved. And the funny thing is, when we get approved, they send us a letter that we're the fastest company to get approved with them. So,
wow. Nice.
And that's for the safety of the
Sure.
tank and the safety of the water. So
right. And so that tank has been successful in the Middle East. And so what has your role been with the company bringing it to the U.S.?
Well, it's funny you said it's successful in the Middle East. In the Middle East, actually, or in Europe or the rest of the world, nobody uses anymore steel tanks. It's kind of like. I would hate to say to compare it. It's like the old phone, the big phone. That's what they consider it. Everybody uses this. Now there's different, fiberglass. There's different manufacturers. There's the Chinese one. There's ones that they're a little bit cheaper, So on the product, we have the elite product on this one. But in that region and in Europe and everywhere in the world, basically everybody's going that way.
Interesting. And so, what has your role been in bringing that to the U.S., bringing this product to
Well,
the U.S.?
in 2011, when we knew that AWA, well, we were incorporated in 1992 in the U.S. That's when he incorporated the company in the U.S. And then when we were going through all the approvals that for the U.S., when it came kind of close, our vice president Owen Stevens, he moved to the U.S. in 2011, and he started working more with them, and he was part of the AWA to help them to kind of understand the tank more because they couldn't understand it because it was not here. So 2012, I think we got the approval from AWWA, and he started marketing it and selling it in the U.S. We don't install the tanks, so we sell the product. The product is like extremely easy to install once you know what you're doing, and he started selling it, and he saw that there's a big potential for it, and that's when I was almost leaving the U.S. When I was leaving Dubai to the U.S. And that's what the owner said. You know what, Owen is already over there. Why don't you help him with the rest of the country? And we kind of split the country, and we start and I think 2020. No, I'm sorry, 2019 is when we met.
I think I actually saw it
18.
as a LinkedIn post that you had done on the tank, and I believe that was in 2018.
To 18.
Yeah,
Okay.
2018, and yeah, we had a little bit of groundwork to do, kind of similar. Sounds like to what the owner of the company went through initially, kind of
True.
doing
True.
some education, getting the word out there about the tank, and now we've had multiple successful installations, and are really starting to see some activity and some growth take off.
Yeah, last year we had a really, really good year with you guys. I always count the years that was good, so that's how. But I mean, I went with you guys to most of the meetings, and the most thing that helps in selling this product is somebody that's being trusted before, and you guys have a great name in the market, so people trusted you. If you put your name behind a product, that would be good. And I think that that's the most thing that gave us advantage. This is why Houston we've been selling them right and left now because of that. So thanks to you.
Well, we appreciate that. And, we kind of have a history of doing that. We pride ourselves on offering the best product in the category, right? We want to have that high standard for the products that we represent. And so with FTC, again, that top level product, like you said, but it was some education and bringing something new to the market, not necessarily a Me Too product that was already existing.
Exactly.
So, yeah, it takes a little bit longer to kind of get that rolling, but like you said, we've had a great year last year, and looking forward to a great year in 2021.
Yeah, we got a lot on the books.
We
got a lot on the books for 2021.
So you mentioned the installation part, and that's been an area where we've partnered together for sure. But I think that's one of the unique things about this tank is that not only is it the fiberglass and has all of the ratings and certifications and everything to keep the clean water clean, but just the way that the tank is delivered and assembled really makes that whole construction process simpler.
Exactly. That's one of the things also that, as I mentioned to you at the beginning, he was trying to find some unique product that basically nobody has, keeps water clean. And one of the big problems, especially in buildings that they have basements or the tank inside, and it's so funny, I don't know how they do that. They put the tank and then they build a building around it. And then when they have to change the tank, they scratch their head, But so one of the things is it's a modular tank, so you can put it in any way in any room. You can just walk in through any door and hold the panels and bolt them together and do that. On the other side also, you can put in any shape that you want. So you can do an L shape, U shape, S shape, any shape that you want, as long as you still have the 90-degree angles on the corners.
And we've already run into pretty much all of those
Yes,
challenges so far. I mean, we've had new construction where the building was already up and the room was already up, and so they carried the panels in by hand through the service elevator to get in, and that wasn't an issue, and be able to build it in place. In the aftermarket, we've gone into basements and other tight rooms, taken them in through the service elevator, and been able to build them in place. And we've done an L shape, I believe.
Yes, we've already done one.
did an L shape, and we've also
For the Christian Community Center, we did that.
right. And the other thing that's been great has been able to work with y'all and all of the kind of engineering changes that y'all have been able to make to add the modular steel base and to accommodate the partition for the domestic and fire combination tanks with the interstitial space. All of that we can accomplish with the tanks and build them in place.
You know, I mean, speaking about what you're talking about right now is people usually don't want to change. And usually people, you know, we tell them about the tanks forever. And then whenever they reach in a tank that they can't do anything about, they're like, hey, let's call these guys and let's see if we can do that. And it's a tight room. They can't get the tank out. They can't, you know. One of the projects, I think it was the Texas A&M. You know, they had a project that we've done with you guys for them like this. It was extremely. I mean, you could not get a tank in there, and we were able to do that on that thing. This started not only here. One of the biggest success story that we have is in New York City. And New York City, when they had the huge problem with the dirty water, and there was some people, you know, dying from that, they decided, okay, we're gonna let this slide quickly, you know, and approve it quickly. And they put all their tanks on top on the roof of the building.
Right.
And to put a tank on top of the building in New York City, you have to shut down the street at night and get a crane and lift the tank and put it up there. Well, our tank, we took it in the elevator and we put it up there in one day. And this was like, it was cheaper than even shutting down the street.
Sure.
Or cheaper than getting the crane to get in. And we built it much faster, and it just took off over there like crazy. So.
Yeah, because traditionally those are built-in-place wood tanks, right?
That's
that
right.
seems to be what's popular there. So they're having to lift all those pieces of wood and be able to rebuild those tanks. There's actually an episode, I think, at Dirty Jobs where they did one of those, and it looked pretty involved to do that whole process.
They used to do wood. I mean, now they're changing a little bit, but they used to. I mean, if you look at any, you know, like map or anything like that, you see all those like coned wooden tanks, you know, which is not recommended at all, at all, you know. So, but that was what they did in the old days. So.
Yeah, and so now being able to not have to get the permits, not have to get the crane, be able to take it up the service elevator, it's been, I imagine, a lot.
Much faster, much easier, and much cheaper, and much cleaner water. So.
Sure, and that sort of flexibility to be able to design the tank around the space and then to get it in and out without a lot of equipment or permits, things like that, has really helped both on new construction and on the aftermarket. So with the flexibility of being able to design the tank around the space and then be able to take it in pieces and is really helped us in new construction, but also in the aftermarket. Like I said, in Houston there's a lot of older tanks that are a combination domestic and fire tank that are stacked vertically. So now the code says that they have to be separate tanks and domestic and fire with that interstitial space. So the older tanks, it's a single tank, domestic on the bottom, fire on the bottom, domestic on the top, such that, if you have a fire, it starts to suck down the water and the domestic pump pulls off the top and, can't steal the fire water anymore. But it means you have potable and non-potable water in the same tank.
True.
So what we've been able to do in some of those instances is say, okay, let's just leave that tank there for an interim, make that your current fire tank. We'll put in a new domestic tank.
We keep the dirty one for the fire.
yeah, and then we can put in the domestic. So if it has to kind of be done in those steps, we've also gone in and said, okay, well, this combination tank is in bad shape. It's not going to be able to be repaired. Can't use it for your fire. Let's go ahead and put in a new combination tank.
Yeah, chop it, take it, and put a combination one.
Yeah, so we've been able to do either one of those situations with the existing tanks, and ultimately, I think even for the fire, this is going to be a better solution than the steel over time, because you're not going to have to do the linings and cleanings and things like that with this tank that you would with the steel. So,
definitely.
So over time, definitely this is going to be the best solution for both the domestic and the fire tanks. But we've been able to kind of do it in steps when it's needed.
And it's normal at the beginning. Like I said, at the beginning they come to you whenever it's like there's no other solution. They but then after that, once they use it, as you can tell on some of the project, once they use it, they never go back to something else. So
right, and all the panels are this 1 meter width, like what we're seeing behind us.
No, we get
right?
panels that they come in 1 meter,
Mm-hmm.
and they get in 1.5 meter, and they come in 2 meter.
Okay.
So it all depends on the design. Whenever you give us, I deal mostly with Michael on that.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever they give us the size that they want and how many gallons, and they give us the size of the room or whatever they're putting the tank is, our computer system automatically would create what is the best, most economical tank to be put in that room. Usually, like when you go higher, the more higher you go, the bottom one have to be a little bit thicker
Sure.
than the top. So it all depends if you're talking about a tank that's going sideways or long ways, or just it's a finite system. So it basically find exactly what needed to be done for the tank.
And that's been great for us to work with y'all to get those designs and get them in CAD, and to be able to offer those to the engineers and be able to lay it out in the space, make sure it's going to work.
Exactly.
It has worked out really well. And, this is kind of the smallest tank here that we can do, right? This is like around 300 gallons. This is 1 meter
This
by
is
1 meter.
260 gallon.
260 gallons, right? So what is on the high end? How large can you go with these?
We went up to 2.5 million gallon. Dubai Airport, we did 2 tanks for them, 2.5 million gallon and 2.0 million gallon, and it's the same exact way of almost building this tank. It's the same, same exact procedure that goes in. It's just on a bigger one. If you see in our video also, it just shows you how it's a repetition of the same things. We just have to put a lot more support.
Sure.
I mean, definitely, but yeah, we went up to 2.5 million, and that tank had been out there. I don't know if you've been to Dubai or no, but when you
Not
land
yet.
in Dubai, you can see it right when you're landing. And it's been there since they opened the airport like 10 years ago.
Wow. Yeah, we haven't come across any applications that large yet, but it's nice to know that
We're working
capability is
we're
there.
working on a project right now for California, and I'm sorry I can't say the name of the project. It's a little bit secrecy, but it's for the government. But it's almost a 1 million gallon tank.
Wow. Yeah, so that's, we've seen, I think, 20 and 30,000 gallons or so for some of the outdoor storage tanks. It's kind
Well,
of
yeah,
the largest
you
we've
guys
played around with.
you guys work. You guys work with most of those tanks, like buildings and
Mhm.
indoor and outdoor. I'm working also with you guys one on the airport. The airport is a big place for us also, because airport, hospitals they always want to keep clean water.
Sure.
Hotels, but airports, they never want a tank high. They always want to keep low profile
Sure.
tanks. So we've done one in Homa. We've done Dubai Airport. We've done a couple different airports also. So
Right. Yeah, most of the tanks we're doing are that lower profile as well, restrictions with the buildings and things
because
like
it's
that.
inside the building. That's right.
Right. But it's
But one of the things that I always say, especially like in California right now, on the project that we're working, they wanted to keep it low. They call it NIMBY, which is not in my backyard. Nobody wants to see those ugly big, 2-3 million gallon water tank. They try to decorate them with the city name and the football, team name, but they still, nobody wants to, buy a really nice house and have this in their backyard, basically.
Sure. Yeah, and our service techs, EJ and Miguel and Isaiah, have been building these tanks, and it's interesting to hear you say it's basically the same construction method that they've been using to build these massive tanks.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they're ready to take on a 2 million gallon tank.
as you know, we always provide, a factory trained supervisor to come and take a look, and I always recommend it. To be honest with you, I'm not an engineer, and I don't have engineering background at all. But the engineers say, "Oh my God, it's like an IKEA or it's like Lego or whatever."
Mhm.
I know it's easy. To me, it's not as easy because I don't have the engineering background. But when the same exact, like you build this one, if you want to build one that, go for another 50 meters sideways,
Sure.
you do the same exact thing. It's just the support beams are going to be more stronger. I think they're ready.
They may be. They just may want some help. But we have the video on our YouTube channel of an assembly of a tank, and it's pretty cool to see. Basically starting from scratch to see the tank kind of come together in the end. It's pretty slick.
Yeah, one of the coolest things is to see how, a lot of people think the process is a little bit more complicated and takes longer time. We finished that tank. That's the one that we put in downtown, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think we finished it in a day or a day and a half.
Right. Yeah, most builds
Yeah.
have been, a couple, 3 days max.
Yeah, even
So,
the manager of the building, he walked in the second day, like, it's done. I was like, yeah, it's done.
yeah. So, we've touched on it a little bit, but what would you say in, especially here in the Houston area where we have the city code requirement, so you have to go through the storage tank before you do the pressure boosting. So we just have lots and lots of tanks here. What are some of the common things that you've seen as issues with some of the installed tanks?
Well, first of all, I would say thank God I live in Houston because we can sell a lot more tanks. But you're asking like in other cities?
So, kind of as you've traveled around, in Houston where we have a lot of installed tanks because of our city code requirements and just other places across the U.S., what are some of the common issues that you've seen, especially with steel tanks that are installed?
Well, I mean, when we went, we just did the hospital in Boston. Usually, when you look at the tank that's been installed and it's been for a while, it is not a tank that you would ever want to. And people always tell me, "Oh, well, I don't drink that water." Well, yes, you don't drink that water, but you wash your face with that, you brush your teeth, and you bathe your kid with it. So, if you look at that tank and you look at that water, you would never ever want to do anything with that water, except maybe spray it on your enemy, because the water is filthy inside the tank. And I try to always go back to that we keep clean water clean, because the water that you put in our tank, if you open our tank a year later, and the water would be almost the same.
Mm-hmm.
So most of what I see with other project is if it's a concrete tank, you see cracks, there's leaking of water, there's like kind of green stuff, growing on the side of the tank. With the steel tanks, I see a lot of like reddish in the water, and rust. And one of the biggest plus, and I had to go to the benefit right now on our tank. Well, I know we're going to do that later, but our tank, when we drain it completely. So every single drop of water would leave the tank. We clean the tank, and then we fill it back up in hours. And most of the tanks, when they drain them, there's always 7 to 8 inch in the bottom that they cannot get rid of. So basically, all the dirt is in the bottom. So even if you clean the tank, you clean all the top, and then all the sediment is in the bottom, and all
Yeah.
the rust is in the bottom. That's why most of the hose also comes in the bottom, because that's what have. So most, to answer your question, is the I've never seen a lot of them like sandblasted, like the one in Dubai and Saudi and all those, because the weather is not as
Mm-hmm.
bad. But what I've seen is dirty water, and they leave the lid open. There's dirt. There's animals. Like just, I mean, dirty water basically.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. There's a lot of people I think that have kind of been in and around the tanks that have kind of shared that opinion, like, oh,
Uh-huh.
I'm not gonna drink that water. But the one that you mentioned that is kind of interesting and not one that you would necessarily think of is the lid being left open. And a lot of the steel tanks especially have a large square lid,
Uh-huh.
very thick
With
steel.
32 big bolts.
It's all bolted on. And once you need to get into that tank, do all those bolts, lift that heavy,
Never put them back in. I've
and
never
and
seen
it,
one put back in.
it never comes back on. And so now you just have this open, unprotected opening into the tank and into the water, and you're gonna get not only just dirt and dust, but animals and other things getting into that tank. So yeah, it's definitely kind of an unexpected issue with the steel tanks, and with I mean, that's the lid to the FTC. It's the
Yeah.
same material, very light and easy to open and close, and no light, no issues.
Yeah, and if
closing.
you
So,
leave this one open, you have to be really lazy, because it's not like you don't have to do 32 bolts, and you just lift it up, and we have a secure safety lock on it. So it's pretty easy to take it off on.
yeah. And the other thing I like that you mentioned was the kind of being able to drain the tank completely. And there's two, so we do have the tanks raised
Mhm.
off. Part of that is for the building
Mhm.
process,
And
but
also for inspection, if you
Sure.
want to. So we raise the tank up, and we keep it at least 2 feet away from every single wall, and so you can always inspect the tank. That's one thing.
Mhm.
And the second thing, when you're building it, also it's easier to build it that way. Well, it's the only way you can build it, and also to drain the water completely. And inside the tank, if you look at the panels inside the tanks, we have the convex panels all over the tank, so they kind of like a pyramid.
Hmm.
And then at the end we have concave one. So when you open to drain the tank, automatically all the water would just follow that thing, and every single drop of water would leave the tank.
Yeah, and that's much quicker and easier than having to get a sump pump or a vac truck in there to
Exactly.
get out that remaining piece. So it is, another kind of unique feature of the tank to be lifted like that to give you that training and everything else. And with the suction line on the pumps helps out a little bit too to give you to raise that suction line going over to your booster pump to be able to get a little extra slope or anything that you might need to tie into your booster system. So kind of nice all around for us to use that elevated design.
Yeah.
So, what kind of advice would you have if you're walking into one of these buildings? And we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but to a building engineer or to a contractor, you're walking into a tank and it's just not in good shape. Like what kind of process would you recommend they go through?
Well, the number one thing is like you said, if the tank is still, if it's only dirty and it's still, doesn't need lining inside it or anything like that, I would say keep it for the fire, build one for the domestic, just like you said. If not, and we've had a tank that we've changed with you guys that was 5 years old and it was still leaking from the bottom and had problem with it. Chop it, get it out, pay that expense one time, and then put our tank, and then you never have to pay that expense again. So.
Yeah, because you're going to go through potentially, a couple of liners and even another steel tank before the life of that
Definitely. Well,
O-ring is.
liners, you go. I think every 10 to 15 years they change the liner on it. So you're talking about if it's every 10 years, that's 4 times liners before you have to change the rubber on ours.
Potentially change it, right? I mean,
Potentially. Well, this is the reason why we use this one. This one have a 4 O-rings right here, and it's made that it's a German product that would stay for 40 years. That's basically the warranty on this one, and basically you don't have to change it until until there's a leakage.
sure.
It could even go 50. So those 40 years you're buying no lining, no problems. Minimal cleaning services and inspection needed. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. That, and like I said, we've been really impressed with the product and have had great success with the tanks that we have installed and have gotten really good feedback from customers that have the tanks now and that are going and taking a look at them. So we're excited for the partnership and looking forward to more success in 2021 for sure.
Well, one of the things that I look at your you said, what would you say? I would say that I wish that the engineers would that they design, and then they spec, they would look at the tanks, because usually they don't usually go to the building to look at the tank. They spec it from the office. But once you see those tanks in the shape that they are, you would never want to get another one the same. You would want to go with this. And we've had a couple visits that we've done
Mm-hmm.
with Cougar to some of those engineering firms, and some of those engineers, they said, "Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about," and some they just thought, steel tank, stay there in the basement for 40 years, it's the same like everything else. So.
Sure, and it's been the standard for since probably the 60s in Houston. So definitely, if it's not something that you've been in front of, been exposed to, then definitely a site visit to some installations to see the new ones and some old ones
Mhm.
is definitely beneficial, and we're happy to do that.
And if you don't want to do that, I'll send you some pictures.
So we've touched on kind of a lot of things about the tank and about the applications, but anything else that you'd like to share just about the tank itself?
Well, I just want to remind people that it's the new thing, and I want to tell them that basically in this tank, what we've done is we looked at all the problems that they've had before with the generic tanks, the plastic, the concrete, and the steel, and this is why this one was created for it. You get smooth surface, which no bacteria, You get basically the convex and concave, panels in the bottom, which allows all the water to leave. no algae in the tank due to the color of the tank because it's an opaque gray color, so
Mm-hmm.
the inside is extremely pitch black, so no algae would grow inside the tank. Extremely strong, very easy to put it anywhere, in a room or outdoor or whatever. Easy to install, takes less time. And also one of the things is also shipping, especially when you go to the big tanks. They ship the tank. You see the big truck with the white sign and the
Right.
police behind it. You don't need to do that. Ours comes in a container that just they can put it in right outside the door where they want to and just walk it into it. So I know I'm biased, it's our tank, but it's a no-brainer. I mean, I changed my career to sell this tank, so I know that this is the right tank for the market.
Right, and we've made a similar decision to partner with you guys and really feel like this is the best option on the market. And one thing that we didn't touch on earlier when we talked about the flexibility of the installation, not only being able to bring the panels in and shape them like you said to match the space, but also to be able to put the connections on the tank in the field specifically where they need to go. So we plan that out. In general, with the construction of the tank with y'all,
And they always change on you guys later on
to get the flat surfaces and to get the sizes that we need. But we've been pretty successful in doing those connections in the field to match up to the existing plumbing and make that as flexible as possible. And we're using a combination of some of the PVC fittings and also some stainless steel fittings with a groove connection to make the piping connections.
Yes, you can put the flange. You put them on. We always leave it like this, and you put them on site. Sometimes the plumber decide, I need to go on this one or this one. So you can just remove the panel, put it on the other side, and drill it. One more thing I wanted to mention, and it's funny that it doesn't come a lot in Texas, and we've been doing most of the work indoors. California, this is on every single meeting that I have. It comes. It's like, what happened when people shoot at the tank? And I'm like, who shoots at the tank? And it seems like a very common or fun thing to do in California. So basically what they're saying is what happened when the tank get damaged.
Sure.
Think about it if it's a one piece, or think about it when it's too many pieces. If you shoot at this tank or you damage the tank or truck back up into it or something like that, you can change onto that panel. You don't have to do the whole thing. And for the shooting people, we have cap that you can just put it in from the inside, and in 1 minute you can stop that. But basically, you can stop the leak right away if it get damaged, and you can change only that panel. You don't need to just change the whole tank or reline the whole tank. So that's a big plus also.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely a unique problem and way to solve it. That we have not had that issue yet. So.
No, I mean, at least we have them in buildings, but outdoor, it seems like, especially in California, I think it's a trend. So
okay. And the other thing about the tanks outside that we haven't talked about is the ability to put the insulation directly into the panel, right?
Yes, and that's usually, it depends on the weather. Like in cold weathers, in extreme cold or extreme weather, you can, this same panel, you can have an insulated panel with a 1 inch or with 2 inch on it. And that's just basically to keep the temperature of the water basically less than that. We do that a lot in like extreme cold weather, like let's say, for example, Boston or Alaska. We've done one in Alaska. We've done it in Boston, and also in extreme hot weather, especially if they want to have that water temperature controlled.
Yeah, you don't want to turn on the cold water and have hot water coming in.
Yeah. And the water temperature in this, I mean, a lot of people say, can you use it for boiling water? You cannot. It is not made for boiling water. So.
Right. What did you say the top end was, like 140-ish degrees?
Yeah, 140.
Yeah. So most applications that we're dealing with are going to be domestic and fire.
Exactly.
Cold water storage, not an issue, and we're hopefully pairing them with a new Grundfos booster system that is going to shut down on low flow and not deadhead and drain back to the tank and create hot water in the tank either. So,
and they ask me also sometimes about the freezing. What if the water freezes in the tank? If you know that the water is going to freeze, just don't fill it up all the way. If it's less than that, even if it freezes, it's okay, and you can take it later on. So
interesting. Okay. Awesome. So anything else we didn't cover?
No, I mean, we look forward to, we had a great year last year, and we're looking forward for an unbelievable year this year. So it looks like we're on track for it. So
yeah, I think everybody's ready to put 2020 in the rearview mirror and and move on to.
I don't know, man.
2021?
Sometimes you don't know. Sometimes you might want to wish you go back. We'll see how it would go. But I'm always positive, and and hopefully everybody would stay safe for this year. So
Absolutely. So, well, I really appreciate you coming on the show.
no problem at all. My pleasure.
Yeah,
My
enjoyed
pleasure.
the conversation, and it's such a great story, the history of FTC, and also your story, making it over here and making that leap of faith with the company to switch your career and come over here. It's a great story, and I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Thank you so much. Thank
Awesome.
you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and also we appreciate your partnership, and look forward to working more with y'all next year.
Definitely.
Awesome. Also want to thank everyone for watching today on Building Value. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.